Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 212 of the Kiss Army Nation podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Pasquale Veri.
And I am Claudio Spera. Welcome to the show, everyone.
On this episode, we're going to be profiling a fan who's been through it all, from discovering Kiss to experiencing the band in ways that has shaped his life. For this fan, it's more than just in music. It's become identity, energy, and pure rock and roll devotion. We're going to dig deep into this fan's personal history. That fan is Michael Canavan. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. I love the introduction. You know, I think that we couldn't have used better words than this, Michael. So this is truly a pleasure to have you on the show. It's been so long that we wanted to have you on. So thank you for your time, and we're going to have a blast. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
So long, Claudio. We met at a 2013 at a New Jersey Kiss Expo, and it's because of that jacket you see in the background. I saw that jacket, tapped him on the back, and go, "This is a cool jacket." We started talking, and here we are today.
And here we are.
Isn't it crazy?
12 years later. That's amazing, man.
That jacket I'll get into. It's brought a lot of great opportunities my way, including this. So I appreciate the compliments.
There you go. Beautiful. So, Michael, let's kick it off talking a little bit about music. So, what kind of music were you surrounded by as a child?
So, growing up as a kid, I grew up in the Bronx, New York, and my parents listened to mostly country western. There was a station in New York called WHN, and classic country western, and then soft rock of the 70s, really. So that's what I was kind of brought up on very, very young. Mm-hmm. And then the funny thing is that, my grandfather, we lived in the same building as my grandparents. When I was very young, 6, maybe 7 years old, he'd go out for his afternoon beer with his buddies at the local pub. So he used to take me along. I'd sit in one of the back booths with a bag of pretzels and a soda and draw, because I was a budding artist. So I'd take my comic books and draw with my drawing pad. And then they had a jukebox there. So my grandfather would give me a few quarters here and there. Between the pinball machine and the jukebox, I was in heaven, and drawing back there, having a little soda, pretzels. So it sounds silly, but it's funny. So that was when I kind of got educated a little bit more to what was on the jukebox at these, the pub or two that he brought me to, which was, Thin Lizzy, Queen, Heart, Led Zeppelin, The Who, the heavier stuff from the 70s. And that's kind of what I followed a little bit until I got into Kiss.
That's genius, man. To do that, to take you to that kind of places, that's a dream, man. So that's what we need to do. That's good parenting, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah. I'd say so. I don't think it happened today, but back then it was okay to do that.
It's true. So you talked about the jukebox and being exposed to different music, but it doesn't have to be necessarily about Kiss. But do you remember that first album or song that basically grabbed your attention?
Yeah, I think it was from the jukebox. I can think it was a combination of different songs of the day that kind of attracted me to heavier music. So I think it was "We Will Rock You" by Queen, early Foreigner stuff, Thin Lizzy, "Boys Are Back in Town." Those were the hits that were on the jukebox. And those songs, 75, 76, just before I got into Kiss, were really the songs that grabbed me. And it was like, a whole new world compared to the music that I was listening to with my parents,
Okay. So you mentioned that. How did you finally get into Kiss?
Well, I think the same with everybody else. I think it was our generation's Ed Sullivan show was the Poland Halloween special. So I think we were so young at the time, not everybody refers to the Midnight Special or Dick Clark's show that they were on very early in their career. Everybody points to the Poland Halloween special because it was on in prime time.
Yeah.
So us kids were able to watch it. And once that came on and I put the visual to the music, I was blown away. I never saw anything like it in my life. So that was really, really what hooked me and brought me into the Kiss world going, I need more of this. This band is incredible. The visual was just astounding.
So, Mike, I said in the intro that we're going to go deep into your fandom. So let's go deep. And we're going to do something tonight that we've never done before on the show. We're going to play a little game called Then and Now. So we're going to ask you a series of questions related to Kiss, and you're going to answer in two ways: your first experience then, and your present experience now. Okay?
Yep.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
All right. So let's start. Your favorite Kiss album then, and your favorite Kiss album now.
So back then, it was definitely Destroyer. The first album I ever got was for Christmas, which was Alive. But I'm going to stay with the studio album here. But with Alive, when we got it for Christmas, my brother and I, once I dropped the needle on that first song and that intro, Deuce, it was unlike anything I ever heard in my life. It was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So that's after the Poland Halloween special, when we got that album, that's what really got me going with Kiss as a super fan right away. But Destroyer, I'd have to say, is my favorite then. That was I think the epitome of their costumes, their appearance, the album cover art, the sound of the production on that album.
The superhero stuff,
imagery.
you know, the superhero.
It evoked such imagery, and the marriage of the production and the songs on that album compared to the visual of what I had seen on TV and then what I saw on the album cover. It just was a perfect marriage. It just was a perfect album to me. And especially that atmospheric, cinematic like production was the key for me, because you could visualize so much with that, just listening with your headphones on.
And now?
I'd have to say it's the same album. It hasn't changed. I mean, I look back so fondly on that album just because of what I just explained. It really hasn't changed for me as far as my favorite album. That definitely, I pinpoint that album all the time as my favorite Kiss album for sure.
You know, we've done a lot of interviews and fan profiles on this show, and a lot of people got into Kiss because of Destroyer. I think the majority of us got into Kiss, especially, fans our age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not surprising.
Yeah. All right, your favorite Kiss song then, favorite Kiss song now.
So I would go back to the earlier story when we dropped that needle on Deuce off of Alive. That version of that song is so raw and opened that concert on that album so perfectly. That was the go-to song back then. And believe it or not, same with Destroyer, it's my go-to song now. I point to that song as my favorite Kiss song. It was the beginning of the band. It was the first song I ever heard by them in my own house, on my own record player. And it was just phenomenal. And I think Alive has the definitive version of that. And not far behind, believe it or not, I think the Alive 3 version is phenomenal also with Bruce.
I agree. Fully agree on this one.
I think this game is an interesting experiment because it shows that our first impressions stick with us for life.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's true.
Very interesting. All right, your favorite Kiss member then and your favorite Kiss member now.
So I think with most of what people would say, in my opinion, is probably Gene.
Yeah.
Because of the visual and what he did on stage and how he pranced around on stage and how evil he looked and how his costume and everything else. But as the 70s moved on, I think my brother and I also, we flipped between band members as favorites, depending on, because I always liked Ace, I always liked Peter, I always liked Paul, I always liked all of them, obviously. But I think with the advent of certain songs and images, you turn to Ace a little bit, and he was your favorite for what he did. And then the same with Peter. I remember when my brother and my parents took us out to, I think, Corvettes back in the day to buy the solo albums. So we were each allowed to buy 2 of the solo albums to make the 4. And I think my brother, bought Peter and Paul, if I remember correctly, and I think I bought Gene and Ace. And my fascination at that time, too, was you never heard much from Ace and Peter. So those are the albums that you were dying to hear, in my opinion, at the time, because you heard Paul and you heard Gene's songs all the time. But Peter and Ace were like, it was such a discovery to see what they were going to put on an album. So I think through the 70s, it kind of flip-flopped, but I think Gene was definitely my first favorite. But looking back, they were all just, mind-boggling as far as their identities.
In my house, that would be a war between my brothers and I. I choose 2 and he chooses 2. You imagine that? Oh my God!
Luckily, we shared somewhat, but
yeah.
I kept mine in much better condition than he kept his, unfortunately.
So this is fun. I love it. So let's continue the ride. So I have a few questions of my own for you, Michael. So you're a collector. we can see, and
Right.
you can actually expand on this topic if you want, just to talk about collectibles and stuff. So, what's your favorite collectible then, and what's your favorite collectible now?
So I think in collectible, I'm gonna broaden the term a little bit, because collectible,
Yes.
when you think about collectible, you think about something, maybe the band merchandise that you have.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
there's plenty of that, but I'd have to say there are a couple of things in the 70s. I had a next door neighbor who babysat for us. Colette Arena was her name. She had a girl. She was a few years older than us. Obviously, we were, back in the day, probably 7, 8 years old, and she was probably in her teens. She had a girlfriend who lived in Ace Frehley's building. Ace Frehley lived about 5 minutes from us in the next neighborhood south of us in the Bronx.
Hmm.
So I ran into her at 2 occasions outside the building. And the first time, she knew we were Kiss fanatics, because I remember we were listening to Destroyer one night when she babysat us, and her girlfriend was over helping her out. So she knew me and my brother were Kiss fanatics. So she pulled out of her pocket a little square. I have it framed over there. A little square with all their autographs on it. A piece of paper from the 70s.
Nice.
Because this girl had knocked on Ace's door and said, "Hey, I have, friends that I have that are really big fans. I was just wondering if you guys can get an autograph." So we brought back to her a piece of paper that had all 4 of their autographs.
Oh my
Wow.
God.
And just pulled it out of her pocket one day, unfolded it, and handed it to me.
Wow.
So ever since then, I've had it, in plastic. It's faded a little bit, but that was like unbelievable, because I think it's very rare where you have something there that they autographed from the 70s. I don't think.
Yeah, that's right. That's the real deal, man.
Yeah,
oh
Between
my
that,
God.
way before the meet and greets, way before being able to meet the band. So she actually brought a second thing, which was a black and white, probably from 75, all coin photo, that you got one of the press kits. And on the flip side, they autographed it also. So that was a full-size 8x10 that they autographed. And it says, "To Mike and Ed, keep on listening." And it had all their autographs on it, which I have framed right up on this side also.
Wow.
So those, I think, were 2 right out of the gate in the 70s that were just cherished items that were my favorites from the beginning.
Oh my God. Well, to me, if you were to ask me, that applies, collectible then and now and ever,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Of
nothing
course,
can
yeah.
beat that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I have to ask you a question. So have you changed? So what's your favorite collectible now?
Again, it's really not a band issued, merchandise. It's really this, the jacket that I mentioned over here. I'm an artist. I've been a designer of all my life. My career is graphic design. And I've been drawing ever since I was a little kid. So I had a leather MC that I bought in 94, 95. So I painted this in 1995. Okay. And it took me a little while to decide. I wanted to figure out the definitive images that I could put on it, because there were so many pictures and photos that you could paint that were so awesome. But I finally decided on the image from the Alive poster on the back. And then there's an image of Paul and Gene on each sleeve. And then I did the rhinestones for the logo. And then, so the stars aligned after I finished painting it. It just so happened that summer of 95, KISS did their convention at Roseland in New York, and they were doing the convention tour. So we went to that. I had the jacket fully painted, and I got Paul and Gene to autograph it, which was phenomenal. So after that, they had in the fall of 95, and I'll go back on the timeline here a little bit. Fall of 95, Ace and Peter were doing like a sci-fi rock memorabilia convention in Jersey. So they were doing an appearance. So I took the jacket there and was able to get them to autograph it. So I had all 4 members autograph that jacket, which was phenomenal.
Wow.
So now to go back a little bit, at the Roseland convention, someone from MTV saw me wearing the jacket, much like Pask did at the expo, and took my name down, because they said, "Oh, we're doing a few KISS events that are coming up, so we want some super fans there. So I'm going to take your name down and we'll be in touch." Little did I know, I think that convention was like June 30th, somewhere around there, July 30th maybe. a week or two later, they were doing the taping for the Unplugged.
Oof.
So she called me up
Holy
with tickets, 2 tickets to go to the Unplugged.
Oh my God.
So they sent me the paper to sign. You had to sign a release because it was going to be on TV and everything. So I was able to go to the Unplugged because of that jacket.
Oh my God.
Lo and behold, the following year, after we all knew that they were getting back together for the reunion, as you guys know, they did the finale under the Brooklyn Bridge for the MTV Awards in '96, September of '96. I got a call about a month earlier before that with 2 tickets to go see them at the Brooklyn Bridge.
Whoa.
So me and my buddy got to go see them at the Brooklyn Bridge also via MTV because of that jacket. That jacket was seen at the convention. So that jacket's brought me a lot of luck. So that's definitely my go-to collectible that I have now for sure.
Oh my God.
That's lovely, man. Great story. I love it. I love it.
Gene and Paul have seen it in different appearances and stuff. They always compliment on it. Ken Kelly saw it. He was very complimentary of it. So, you know, it's really my pride and joy and my current favorite, obviously, you know, KISS collectible.
You were very popular at the expos, I remember. People taking pictures with you and the jacket and everything, myself included.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so much fun. Yeah. To see everybody's reaction to it. It's terrific.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
yeah.
Now I'm curious. I want to know more. So there's the main painting is on the back. Is there anything on the front of the jacket?
There's nothing on the front. If you want me to show you quickly, I can show you, or else I can.
Oh yeah, I would love to. Yeah, please.
So there's sleeves. There's 2 sleeves that are there. This is the back.
Yeah.
Wow. With the rhinestones.
Now with the rhinestones and then the signatures on it.
And the colors are
And
so
we have-
crisp after all these years, eh?
Then we have Gene on one side on one sleeve
Oh.
that he autographed.
That is beautiful.
And then on the other side we have Paul.
Oh
How long
my
did it take? How long
God.
did it take you to do that?
Oh my
It took
God.
me, you know, on and off. It took me probably about 2 to 3 months
Oh wow.
to do it.
But you know, as Pask was saying, so the colors are still so vivid. You know, it's amazing. It's beautiful.
So, yeah, so there's a little bit of maintenance to it. The beauty of painting on leather is that it really absorbs the color really well. There's really no cracking, and you know, I don't wear it every place. I wear it really to KISS events and KISS concerts, so it gets a few wearings a year. But every once in a while, I'll put a new coating of glaze on it to soften it up, bring out the color a little bit. You know, I've been replacing rhinestones that fall off. There's little accents, rhinestones all over the painting also, as well as the logo. So I try to keep it looking nice.
Wow. I'm still shocked. So
Thank you.
let's get back to the game. So
Yeah.
we were talking about collectibles. Now let's talk about KISS moments. So you've been through so many. What's your favorite KISS moment then, and what's the favorite KISS moment now?
Well, unequivocally, I think the KISS moment then was seeing them for my first concert and my first KISS concert. My brother and I, my mother took us
Okay.
to go see them at the Garden for the Dynasty tour.
Okay.
July
Well, that
of
was your
79.
first one. Okay.
Yeah. So that was phenomenal. I think I was 9 and my brother was 7 or 8 and 10. But so that was a big deal for us to finally see them. You know, we went from watching them on TV, the Pole End, to getting their audio list, being blown away by Alive and Destroyer. Now by 79, you know, we get to see them, you know, $12 tickets, not so bad back then.
MSG. Oh my God.
So it was a lot of fun, and that was, you know, that even brought us deeper into the fandom because we saw them live, and there was obviously nothing like seeing them live.
Yeah.
That spectacle was amazing, and you know they get a lot of you know, blowback for that period, for those costumes and that tour and that album. But to me and a lot of other people, I think that really was their first show and their first tour. You know, it just means so much to me that era.
Yeah.
You know, with those costumes, I just love it.
What about now? So your favorite KISS moment now?
I think just the fact of a few shows that I'd seen them over the years, that were special to me. I think 2 or 3 stand out. I think the Brooklyn Bridge show for sure.
Mhm.
We were so close, and it was just so impactful. They pulled up on a fire boat up to the barge, up to the dock, and they just got off, and they were just milling around on stage, and it was just like waiting for their cue from, you know, the TV producers. And as soon as that cue happened, it's like someone flipped a switch, and they just all just went into Kiss mode, and it was just unbelievable. The fireworks, the pyro. There were people behind us hanging out their fire escapes from their building, watching the spectacle. And then there were all of us on the pier there watching it. So that was definitely one great moment that I'll never forget. The other one was a non-makeup moment, actually, because we had gotten front row tickets to go see them at Radio City for the Lick It Up show.
Okay.
And we were on Gene's side in the front row, which was just absolutely phenomenal. I think probably first seated front row show I was ever to since, you know, nothing since that I was that close in a theater like that. So it was just phenomenal to see them because you have to understand, you know, 79 was the Dynasty tour, nothing for The Elder and Unmasked in the United States, really. And then you had the Creatures tour, which we were actually waiting to roll around to New York. It never made it to New York.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the day of pen pals, when you actually had pen pals and you communicated that way with other Kiss fans, you know, there was a friend I had in Montreal, believe it or not, that was going to come down and see them in New York if they didn't play Montreal and vice versa. But, you know, they never came around. So the Lick It Up tour was a big deal because it was the first time seeing them in 5 years. So we were dying to see them and to get front row seats. My father worked in the city at the time, and he had gone to the Radio City box office and just by chance was able to snag 4 front row tickets. Back in the day where you could get get front row tickets for a regular price, you know.
You didn't need to have any special contacts, you know, just to get That's beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
No VIP status. And then those 2 shows, and I think the other show also, there's so many, but I think the other one too, 2 special ones were 2 that they played at club shows in New York. One was they did 2 nights at the Ritz down on 11th Street to warm up for, I think, the Crazy Nights European festivals.
Oh, okay.
And then, which was phenomenal because Eric had his huge kit on stage in a club, which was like amazing. And then the Revenge tour when they did the club shows over, you know, what used to be L'Amour's in the warehouse out in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
those shows were so electric and so the energy was just so palpable in those small places. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. I thought, you know, when you mentioned the Ritz, I thought that you were going to mention the Revenge tour because I heard so many great things about that. You know, it was so amazing. And I'm glad that you mentioned the one under the Brooklyn Bridge because it's amongst, you know, the Kiss fans, it's one of the best, you know, performances. You know, they sounded so great. You know, they were so tight, so sharp. You know, that was a hell of a show. You know, for the original
and the burst of energy. They did 4 or 5 songs in their set, not just the song they did on TV. Yeah. And the burst of energy for those 4 or 5 songs was just unbelievable, incredible.
Wow. So speaking of music and songs, your least favorite song then and your least favorite song now?
So I think then, as I spoke about before, you know, we had high hopes for Ace because he did shock me. Then he did on the Dynasty album. You know, he had some really solid songs on the Dynasty album.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
To me, when Unmasked came out, it was a bit of a letdown because Talk to Me is one of my songs that I don't really like at all.
Okay.
I think those songs, specifically Talk to Me and Two Sides of the Coin, could have been just better songs. Torpedo Girl, I think, is more in the Ace vein of a little different and a better song. But Talk to Me, I just don't understand the appeal. I know so many people seem to like it, and they used to put it in the set, you know, for the Unmasked tour overseas. But
yeah.
It's just a song that I just can't get my head around sometimes.
And now?
And now
still the same. Still the same.
Well, if they didn't top it, it would be still the same. But they topped it, and you know what they topped it with?
Can't wait.
Read My Body.
Oh, I'm with you.
Now, Hot in the Shade is a very maligned album, but that song takes the cake on that album. I mean, talk about ripping off, Pour Some Sugar on Me with a Def Leppard, wannabe song. I don't know, out of every demo they had, I don't know how that song made the album. I just cannot play that song. I skip it every time. It's just...
It's true. I know that Pask, because he's my brother, man, and I know him so well. I know that he's not gonna agree because there was one of the episodes when we were talking about this song, and Pask seems to like it. But yeah, during that era there are many least favorite songs, I have to say.
Yeah. I was trying to hide that fact, Claudio. I was trying to keep quiet.
I know.
But I do actually like that song, believe it or not.
I know.
Really?
It or,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one that I've met.
I remember listening to that song for the first time on the album. It's like, it was one of the highlights for me at the time.
Really?
I'm sorry, but it was.
Wow. You must have been drunk.
I found it catchy. I found it fun. I'm sorry, but I thought she would say that Peter Criss song from Psycho Circus.
Oh yeah, I finally find my way.
Yeah.
That's up there. There's a couple.
Boomerang.
But those are the two that stand out for sure. Yeah.
I love it.
Okay, so I want to ask you just a couple more. I'm not sure about this one because you've done it all. So a moment you wished you experienced then, and a moment you wished you experienced now.
So I talk to my friends all the time, my friends that are a few years older than me, and they tell me all these shows that they've gone to back in the day when I was probably too young to go to shows. They had gone to all these great shows. There was a great place in New York City called the Palladium. Mm-hmm. My buddy had gone to the Eric Carr debut show at the Palladium.
Right.
So I was still a little too young for that. And back then also, we didn't have internet. We didn't have the communication we have now. So a lot of these shows you really didn't know were happening unless you were really plugged in. And at that age, there was so many other things going on. So, I think the Palladium show was one with Eric Carr. And I think going back even further, couple of years before when they made their Garden debut in 77. I think they did 3 or 4 shows there.
Yeah.
And then going back even farther than that, which is another legendary show, New York City, they did the Beacon Theater, which all the photos from that booklet in the live came from. Yeah. Finn Costello, I think, was the photographer. But those photos as kids, when we got alive, we looked at that book for hours because those photos were just mesmerizing. And to know that those photos came from that photo shoot before that show or during that time, it was incredible. And to see them at a place not so small like the Diplomat or any of those small clubs when they were really honing their craft, and really see them kind of start firing on all cylinders at the Beacon must have been incredible.
And what about now?
Something recent, probably one of the Kiss cruises.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just everybody has their own circumstances. I just wasn't able to make any of the Kiss cruises, but in today's age, which is great, I had people that I know that went, and with the advent of the internet and Facebook and Instagram, you get to live vicariously through everybody there, and there's so much video and everything. It's almost like you're there. You don't really miss much, so it's great to have that. But it would have been nice to go on one of the Kiss cruises, but no real regrets. The one show I'm telling you that I did miss, though, believe it or not, the only tour that rolled through New York, New Jersey that I did miss because my parents told me I couldn't go was the Animalized tour because they were not playing at the Garden. They were playing in the Meadowlands at the Brendan Byrne Arena. Mm-hmm. And you had to take a bus there, and it was out of Port Authority, and it was a little bit involved to get there. So my parents were like, no way, you can't go. Ouch. So I think back to that, I'm going, should I have just gone or should I have just listened to my parents? But
you were a good
That was the only show and dealt with the consequences, right? I'd still be around, hopefully. But that was the only show I missed. But no regrets. But those are probably the then and now for those for sure.
That was already with Bruce, huh? If you had gone to that show, it was with Bruce already.
Right. Correct. Right. But I made up for it through the years. I think I'm neck and neck with Pask. I think he said he's been to like 75, 80 shows. I'm right around there also.
Good.
It's a good life. It's a good life.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. No
Okay,
complaints.
so first time playing this game and already a twist on it. So final question.
Yeah.
So something you hated then, but you like now. Like for example, for me, would have to. I think I didn't like the Peter Criss album then. I like it now. After I saw him play his final show in New York, I appreciated the album more.
Yeah, to me, it's kind of the same. If we talk about albums, I have to say that I wasn't very much into Carnival of Souls the first time I listened to it, but now I really dig it. But
yeah, I think it's interesting because the way I look at things too, I don't think at the time any Kiss album that came out from the beginning when we were starting to get albums, I don't think I brought home and I was disappointed in, because to me it was so different than everything else. I always considered it Kiss music. It never was like when Unmasked came out or when The Elder came out. Oh, there's the new wave of British heavy metal. There, Queen's doing this, or Thin Lizzy's doing that, or these new bands coming up, Maiden, they're doing this. It was always, Kiss was always their own category to me. So it really stood apart all the time from all the other music. Mm-hmm. The only time that it really, I think, went neck and neck with the music of the time is when Creatures of the Night, because they were trying to play catch up and kind of capture that heavy metal spirit again with all those bands that were coming out and really wanted to reclaim their crown. And then when they took off the makeup, because they were really going toe to toe with all these glam metal bands of the 80s. But I don't think there was too many things that I sat around and went, wow, I'm really disappointed. But, like you said, Claudio, things grow on you after a while. I think I wasn't too happy with Unmasked. It's not my favorite album by any stretch. But, you go back and you listen to those albums, and it's like a time capsule, because you remember how old you were, you remember the time listening to it. And you remember, you have fond memories of it, whether it was a good album or a bad album. So I don't think there's any album that Kiss released that I really was disappointed in, to the fact that I wouldn't listen to it. Right. I think it's all about perspective.
I love so much, Michael's take on some of the subjects. And because you mentioned past, kind of moments you wished you experienced then and now, it's a touchy subject. Past, don't get into that. But I just need to ask the question. Michael, were you at the last two New York shows?
Yes.
Floor is yours. Tell us what you think. So
my partner in crime, my buddy Fonz that went with me, I could talk about 3 hours about that weekend. That weekend was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was just beyond my wildest expectations, meaning the people that we met up with, the friends that we had that we met after a while that we never met in person, the partying, the hanging out, the people, the stuff we did that weekend, the good time we had. It was all a great time.
Yeah.
Now, my buddy Fonz, who's my partner in crime with everything Kiss, I was talking to him yesterday, he's still bitter about those shows that they didn't do anything special.
Right.
The way I looked at it, and I talked to the guys from Kiss Army Spain right after the show too. We met them outside.
Yeah.
And they were not happy with And there were people like that, and then I had a different take on it. The way I went into looking at it is that they're going to do what they want to do. It's Paul and Gene's baby. They're going to do exactly what they want to do. And they're every right to do what they want to do for those last shows. Yeah. So whether people thought they lacked emotion in those shows, whether people thought they should have brought up guests or approached it differently, they've run that ship for 50 years. Okay. They get to say how they go out. Okay. And I think they went out the way they wanted to. And I have no problem with that. I'm not bitter about it. I was just happy I was there. And I was happy I was able to share those 50 years of memories in that weekend with just having a great time and a smile on my face the whole time. That's my take on it.
Okay. So let me just go a little bit deeper on this one. So basically what you're saying is that you didn't have any expectations on those two final shows.
I really didn't, because if they brought someone out or they did something differently, I kind of wanted to be surprised and
okay.
So I really didn't have a lot of expectations. There was so much chatter on what was going to happen. But to me, from what I was reading and what I was hearing, you know, I really didn't think any of that stuff was going to happen. But people always have hope that it will, or raise their expectations to what they want to see. But again, you know, it's Paul and Gene. They did what they wanted, and they had their families there, and they ended it the way they wanted. And you know, I have no problem with that.
Good stuff. So that was the den. So you were saying that you had a chat with the guys from Kiss Army Spain right after the show. So you were satisfied. How about now? So have you changed your mind? Could you have liked them to do something different? Or
so looking back, I don't know. I'm kind of torn because I think what they did was Kiss in their purest form. They did their show. They didn't. The only thing that I had an issue with, a minor issue with, looking back on it, I would have loved to have heard a couple of songs that they don't normally do for like in the middle of the show or an encore, just to make it a little different.
Okay.
I had no problem with them not bringing up Bruce or not acknowledging Eric or former members in video montages. But I think the set list, I think most people is what most people had a problem with. That the set list still didn't change from what they had been doing for the last year or two.
And I promise I'm going to cut this one with this short question. What about the ending with the avatar, you know, the commercial thing that they put up at the end?
So I think there's been so much time wasted on debating on whether the avatars will be successful or not. I don't know if the timing was right. It seemed like a little rush to get that out.
Okay.
But I will have to say, I think every time people have bet against Kiss in their 50 years, they've lost. So I kind of have confidence that something will come of the avatars, and it's a lot of work that's needed, and they know that. Paul has said it, but never count them out. And if it doesn't work, you know what? It doesn't work. They've taken risks in their career,
like many things
haven't
didn't
worked.
work.
You know?
But
you have to take risks. You know, Paul and Gene will be the first people to tell you that. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And you pick yourself up and you keep going.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights on this one. This was good.
And thank you, Claudia, for opening up the wound once again. When we came back from New York, Claudia and I, we talked for like 7 hours on the drive back about the final shows.
So what was your take on it?
It's a long story. It's a rant fest. It's a rant fest. We did a 3-hour episode when we got back on this. You know.
Yeah. I know.
And every time I'm about to get over it, he brings it back up again.
No, look, we have Michael on the show, man. We have to ask the question.
No. I'm just kidding. I really agree with you. It's, you know, at the end of the day, they do whatever they want. And for me, you know, with the Kiss cruises, with the concerts, it's not even about the band anymore. It's about being with the fans, being within that community. Like, you know, Kiss takes over New York, doing the Kiss scavenger hunt. The
phenomenal. It was
box.
so much fun.
That was incredible.
So much fun. The Metro cards, the newspapers, all the running around the city. I had so much fun that weekend. It was incredible. Exactly. And now to touch upon the Kiss cruises again, you know, people don't realize this, but you know, they set the template when they started the Kiss cruises. What do you see going on now? Every genre of music has cruises now, and they're a huge moneymaker. Who was the first one to really do it?
Yeah.
I mean, they were really the first ones, the groundbreakers, to do that.
Yeah, well, and to your point, I thought I remember when they first announced it, I thought that it was some, you know, stupid idea. I say cruise, a Kiss cruise, you know, and you know, 12 years later, here we are, you know.
Yeah, amazing.
Okay, so Michael, how, you know, this is you know, we're so special, you know, Kiss fans, and but we. You know, lately we've come to the point how to present Kiss to a non-fan. Okay, so how could you describe being a Kiss fan to a non-fan?
I think it's not easy because to me it's been such a I can't imagine my life up until this point without being a fan of this band and having this band in my life this whole time. You know, I alluded to the fact of you know, growing up and being artistic. That kind of fueled my passion for Kiss, and Kiss fueled my passion for art because all through the 70s, We were drawing Kiss, we were painting Kiss, and as you can see with the jacket. So I think it just ingrains so much of their DNA into your life as a band. It's hard to explain to somebody. It's almost like it's a lifestyle. It doesn't take over your life, but it's something that's so important. And there are other bands like this that are important to their fans too. But there's a band now that I love, that I follow, that I'm going to see in a few weeks, called Ghost.
Yeah.
And to me, they're the first band that's really come along that's starting to have that level of Kiss fandom, because the fandom is so dedicated and so involved in the storylines and the lyrics and the music and the appearance and the album to album. There's so much debate, which is great. It's good debate and bad debate, no matter what your opinion is. But I think being a Kiss fan is just, it's music. Music is life to me. I would not be able to live my life without music if music didn't exist. And I think we're all that way, being super fans like we are. But with Kiss, there was just something about it from the beginning, like I explained, at the beginning of the interview, that once you married the audio to the visual, it just grabbed you and it never let go. And 50 years later, it's just, a huge, huge part of my life. And, I don't know what I ever would have done without being a Kiss fan. It's just something that would have been missing from my life.
So I have news for you, Michael. So you get a phone call from Gene Simmons now, okay?
Right.
And he tasks you to say, hey, Michael, I need you to recruit new members into the KISS Army.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to present, these people that don't know anything about KISS,
right,
3 to 5 songs. And after listening to those songs, those people, they have to get into the KISS Army. So how would you convince, how would you present KISS to someone who doesn't know them all? Which songs could you pick?
So 3 to 5 is tough.
Yeah.
3 to 5 is tough, but
you're gonna be paid big bucks, It's
so I have to keep it between 3 and 5, or else I don't get paid.
No. Pick whatever you want.
The way I've looked at it before is there's so much throughout their whole career, from the 70s makeup era to the non-makeup era and to the reunion era even. Because there are some great songs in the reunion era and beyond after Tommy and Eric joined. I think I usually have a whole breadth of songs that go through their whole career, just to give everybody an overview of their whole career. So I think going back, Deuce has to be on it. Deuce, Hotter Than Hell, Rock and Roll All Night, Detroit Rock City. Got to have a God of Thunder in there for Gene to have that, that demon, even though Paul wrote it, which he loves to hear that.
Yeah.
And then going forward, if you had to pick songs, you go with Dr. Love, Love Gun. You got to put I Was Made for Loving You, just because it's a monster hit, monster song, and it shows how they can write different songs. And then with the era beyond that, I think their strongest songs are really, you go with, Creatures, I Love It Loud, Lick It Up. And then you go right to, something like, Unholy, which bridges the gap, I think, between, Revenge and that, that sinister 70s, sound that was so great back then. So I think giving someone a breath of all those songs, and when you look at them, they're consistent, but they're different in the same way.
Okay.
So, it'd be interesting to give someone, and they've done so many compilations, but to recruit someone, and if Gene's paying me, I'll put together a good song list for him.
You got the job. That's good.
I love it when my students say, yeah, listen to KISS. Yeah, which songs? I Was Made for Loving You. That's
right.
That's not typical KISS. That's not typical KISS.
No, I know.
So, Mike, I want to talk collecting a little bit. So, in all the interviews that we've done, I feel like there's like 3 categories of collectors: the person who collects everything, the person who collects, like personal items, or the person that collects vintage material. What kind of collector are you?
It's interesting. I think Personal, I have a big collection of personal things that mean something to me. Like I explained to you, the autographs. I think that means a lot more to me than having a lunchbox from the 70s. But obviously, the holy grails of some of the, the old coin stuff. I listened to the podcast with your take on the pinball machine that you're still trying to get. That to me is that's definitely a holy grail. I mention it to my wife all the time. I'm like, in North Carolina, the guy's got one for sale for $5,000. Maybe we
I saw that.
Truck down there. But I collect the tour books. I love the tour books, especially the early ones. I just love that piece, that concert souvenir, and that started with that Dynasty tour book, going to that first show. So I'm not a big collector. My wife would dispute that, but my buddy Fonz and people that I know have massive collections that dwarf mine. I buy some things that I like, that I'm looking for, but I certainly don't buy everything KISS, because I like certain things, and I like personal things too. Obtain, there's autographs that I've obtained, other autographs that I've obtained through friends that know I'm a KISS fan, that have run into Eric or Paul on the street and get their autograph on a pay stub for me, and that stuff means more to me. But the vintage stuff, obviously, everybody loves the vintage stuff, the 70s stuff, for sure.
Was there something that you've wanted, but it's kind of slipped through your fingers?
The pinball machine.
That pinball machine.
Yeah, no, the pinball machine is pretty much the if I got the pinball machine, I think I'd be a happy guy. I think the pinball machine, everybody, I think, looked at that and said, that's the piece. That's the holy grail. But there were a few holy grails, but I think the pinball machine, and obviously that first tour book that they had for the Dynasty Tour in Lakeland only, with the different cover. I think that's definitely a holy grail that if I came across that. And the great thing is, that first KISS tour book, the first one they ever had, I don't know if you're familiar with, there used to be a store in Greenwich Village in New York called It's Only Rock and Roll. So it was a legendary memorabilia, music, record store. And it was right across from Electric Lady on 8th Street. And we used to hang out there a lot in the 80s. And mid-80s, I was there. There was a bin of tour books over underneath the counter, underneath the shelf. And I was breezing through them, and the first KISS tour book was there.
Ooh.
It was like a huge find. Nobody was looking for that stuff back in the 80s. It wasn't of value to anybody back then. Nobody was looking for it. $18.
Oh, my God.
For the first tour book in pretty darn good shape. So stuff like that is still fun to come across. You buy the albums in the 70s, you hang up the posters, you tear the order forms to order something, there's tape marks on everything, you trace over the album, it has pencil marks on it. So I think some of the albums too, it's fun to go into record stores or used vintage stores, and I look around for some of the old albums, and you can still find them in perfect condition with the order form, with the stickers, with this, with that. So that's kind of fun, still searching for that type of thing. So I picked up quite a few things over the years as far as albums that are in pristine condition that are out there. People are getting rid of them. There's estate sales. There's vintage stores that have them. And sometimes you can get a great price for them depending on if the owner knows, how much they're worth.
So, Michael, we would like to get your thoughts on some KISS-related topics that we covered on our discussion panels. We know that you follow us, so you must have heard about those. Discussion panels are always fun.
Yeah.
This one, it's about the 80s. Do you believe 80s KISS is underrated?
I think it's underrated because you have to realize that was their second career. That was their second chapter. So I think it's underrated in the fact that they reinvented themselves all over again as a new band, in my estimate, in my opinion. So to have that whole career from 74 to 83 with makeup, put all out those vintage great albums, classic albums, and then when they took the makeup off to switch and become this band of the 80s and into the 90s that went toe-to-toe with all these other, glam rock bands and hair metal bands, I think they are underrated because they stood their ground and were a testament to the KISS Army too. They stood their ground and they were supported. I mean, to a lesser extent on some of the tours. Some of the tours didn't do as well as others, but I think they were definitely an underrated band. I think their heights could have been much higher, as you guys know, if Gene was invested in some of the 80s, you know, especially on the Animalize and Asylum albums, if he wasn't off doing other projects. But just think if some of those some of those songs on those albums were top-notch Gene songs, would have added so much to those albums and even brought them to, you know, better, you know, bigger heights.
Cool.
But I enjoyed the 80s concerts, you know, immensely. I mean, I think they were definitely underrated because they were counted out, you know, even before Creatures came out. Creatures came out, phenomenal album, as we all know. Then they had a pivot, and they put out some strong albums in the 80s, even though, you know, you got to understand, you know, Motley Crue, for instance, they put out 2 amazing albums, The Debut and Shout at the Devil. Yeah. And the next 3 albums weren't that good. They had one hit, in my opinion, on those albums that saved those albums. The rest of those albums were a lot of filler. Mm-hmm. Those 3, you know, following albums, you know, Girls, 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 you know. To me, Kiss had a lot of good songs in the 80s. They kept that spirit alive. I think they taught a lot of young bands how to do it. So I think they were respected and revered. And I think in some aspect they are underrated for their 80s career, yeah.
Okay. Do you think that they were kind of toe-to-toe with bands like Bon Jovi, Def Leppard? You mentioned Motley Crue, Van Halen.
I think they tried. I don't think they went toe-to-toe with any of those bands. Okay. You know, in my opinion, you know, it was always Kiss to me. Okay. But, you know, I think they were definitely trying to emulate some of those bands at times, which was that was part of the problem, that they didn't reach the heights they could have in the 80s. But again, it was amazing that they had that second career after such a successful and entirely different career in the 70s and early 80s.
Did you ever check out on the band for a while?
No. Okay. Never. My brother did. And I bring that up all the time to him. You know, he checked out once the Elder hit, he checked out for, you know, 2 or 3 years. And I bring that up to him all the time, but never. Like I go back and say, you know, when those albums came out, you know, they were different albums. It was Kiss music to me. It was my band. So I stuck with them, never wavered. And as you guys know, you know, you took a lot of crap for it from friends and, you know, other people, but you know, that was my band. It always was my band. So I never wavered with them for sure.
So we did a couple of other fun episodes for discussion panels, one of them being on Kiss covers. So the question for you is, do you like your covers true to the original, or you like your covers totally different, a totally different interpretation of the song?
So I have 2 answers here. So normally I like my covers true to the original. I think one of the best covers, if not the best, that Kiss has done is Do You Remember Rock and Roll Radio by the Ramones.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Huge Ramones fan, but that song, they even elevate that song because it's so strong, the production and the arrangement on that song. But it sounds like the original. It's a great version. So they've done other covers, of course, but then you have that category, which maybe you don't consider covers, where it's like King of the Nighttime World and New York Groove, songs like that, where the original songs really aren't known. And you reinvent them so well that you make them their own, that people don't know their covers. So you really have 2 categories. But normally, I don't like when people screw around with the arrangements of a song to do a cover. I like a true cover of that song. I think the challenge is to bring it to the next level in that original vein, not to reinvent it. But again, you have those covers that were not well known that you kind of make your own, and they're all of a sudden they're Kiss songs. They're not really the original band songs anymore.
So if they did a cover of Read Your Body, would you want something different or true to the original?
I would strongly dissuade them from doing a cover of Read Your Body. Strongly dissuade. And I think Paul would make that assertion too.
All right, so here's another tough question from one of our discussion panels. We were comparing Paul to other frontmen in the 80s. So how would you compare Paul as a frontman compared to David Lee Roth, Robert Plant, or Freddie Mercury?
So similar to the answer to the last question, but you know, a different answer is that I think he did go toe-to-toe with all those frontmen to me. When you saw Paul Stanley in the 70s, he was the ringmaster general. He held that crowd in the palm of his hand. I mean, there was no one like him as a frontman. I mean, you had Freddie, you had Robert Plant, and Paul grew up on Robert Plant, and Roger Daltrey, so those were his idols. With other people too, but I think Paul Stanley really brought so much to the stage that as a frontman, and was not easy to do because you had Gene, who was a frontman too in some respects, but Paul was, I think, such a great frontman, and I think he kept that going in the 80s. That's where I think it was strong as far as a band in the 80s, because I think he did go toe-to-toe with all those 80s frontmen and was better than a lot of them. And a lot of them, I think, learned from him a lot from the 70s and even the 80s, as their contemporaries, how to work a crowd, how to act on stage. And he was just phenomenal on stage. I thought he was the greatest frontman ever.
Michael, this has been so great, man. So having the chance to talk to you and get your take on so many different subjects, I go keep going, man. So let's continue. Let's do a 2 hours episode.
Sure, I got no.
This is so much fun, man. This is great. But there's one final question I wanted to ask you. I remember meeting with some of my friends some days ago, and they were kind of asking me the question, what is it about Kiss, man? Why are you so much of a diehard fan with these guys? And they don't seem to get it. They don't seem to understand. So what would you say to someone who just doesn't get Kiss? They don't get it. So what would you say?
Well, I think I'd take a lyric from Paul Stanley from the solo album and go, move on.
That's right.
But seriously, I think I'd try to tell them, listen, what I said earlier, and I think is the case with Ghost, who I was mentioning before, is you have to, the audio is just one piece of the puzzle. If you hear Kiss, and a lot of people heard Kiss on the radio, not much because they only played 1 or 2 songs on the radio in the 70s, really, of Kiss. But same with a lot of bands, unfortunately. They have such an immense catalog that people have never heard. And if you're listening to the radio, even Sirius to some extent, satellite radio, you only hear certain songs.
Yeah.
So I think to hear more of their catalog, and then on top of that, with a band like Kiss, you have to experience, not just see on TV or see a video, you have to experience the visual.
Live.
I think there's so many people that I've spoken to, and it's crazy because so many people have gotten into Kiss at so many different points of their career, that are younger than us, that got into them in the reunion era or the 80s era. But they got into them and then went back and saw all the visual and 70s stuff. So I think whether it's 70s, 80s, 90s, the visual is really the key that marries the, to the audio. So you can't take one without the other. You really have to have the whole package. I think that convinces people. And I've taken friends to go see them that, are converted. They see what I'm talking about after they've seen them.
Right.
And I took, when my daughter was, to come full circle, when my oldest daughter was 8 years old, my wife and I took her to see the Alive 35 tour at Madison Square Garden. So that was kind of full circle. My mother taking me when I was 8 or 9. And then me taking my daughter at 8 years old, because like I've said to her since then, and she's gone to a lot of shows since then, I want to set the bar as high as possible for a live show for you.
Right.
So when you see shows in the future, you know what a live show should be.
Yeah. Mike, I'm a high school teacher, and you should hear some of the stuff my kids listen to. But I make it a point never to put down their music, because I see the connection they have to these bands, to that music, how much they love it. And it's like, it reminds me of me when I was into Kiss, when I was 10 years old.
Absolutely.
So really, it's about the connections we make with the music, with the band. That music is a soundtrack to our lives.
Yeah, I mean, you want your kids and your listening to music. That's the main thing. Doesn't matter if it's not your music, but you hope a little bit filters in. And we brought up our kids. I have 2 daughters that we've listened to music in the house all the time, and that's really ingrained in them. And they have their own artists that they listen to, but it's nice because then you hear them listening to the people that we brought them up on too, which they grasp, those artists too as favorites. So that's nice to see. But it's, music in general, like I said, there's nothing like having music in your life.
Mhm.
Yeah, I find more and more young people are getting into 70s and 80s music. Thank God.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show. I can't believe the last time I saw you was in 2013 at that New Jersey Kiss Expo when I first
I know.
saw you with that jacket. And now here we are 13 years later doing the podcast and catching up. It's like that time just flew by. It's like it wasn't even.
I know.
there.
I think I saw you in makeup one time after that at a Kiss show in New Jersey, maybe.
That's
New Jersey or Long Island. Yeah.
Yep, I remember that. That was grueling. Yeah. That was grueling. It took me 2 hours to get from the parking lot to my seats. I was stopping.
I remember.
Yeah. That was something else.
So if you wear my jacket or you wear makeup, it's hard to get around.
You guys go together.
We'd be famous. So Michael, again, thank you so much for coming on the show, for taking the time to come on the show. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it so much. It was a fun time. Thank you.
Absolutely. I said it before, such a great time, Michael. Really a pleasure to meet you. And hopefully, we'll have the chance to cross our paths, in the near future. So it's going to be a blast to see you.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
Thank you. To the Kiss Army, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please send them to talktome@KissArmyNationPodcast.com. Until the next time, remember, never stop rocking. Take care, everyone.